audit by Yo and Yo.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm here with Allie Barnes from Yo and Yo, our audit firm. So she has a presentation for you tonight for our fiscal 25 financial statement audit. A lot of good news in that report. We added fund balance pretty much to every fund of the city, every significant fund. So with over $1 million added to the general fund, which is very good. And then our 2 pension plans and our 2 OPEB plans, which are our retiree health care plans, all improved funding percentages. So that's good as well. So a lot of good news, and there's a lot of work that goes into this report. And so I want to personally thank the finance department. Marcia's here, our city controller, for support. These guys work really hard to get the auditors what they need for the report. So it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears goes into that. And I want to thank Allie and her team too for all the hard work. So with that, I'll leave it to Allie, and I'm here, and Marcia's here for the questions.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time tonight to listen to your audit results. It's an important part of governing the city, and I'm happy to be here to help you fulfill that and talk through our results. So we'll get started first with the audit opinion. This is essentially the reason you're hiring us to do an audit is to take a look at the information presented by your management team and issue an opinion as to whether or not they have followed the rules they're required to, considered things like materiality, and then we issue an opinion on those statements. So the city has received an unmodified or clean audit opinion. So that's the one you want, and happy to report that's the opinion that you're receiving for this fiscal year. We're going to first start by talking some about general fund. Here you can see general fund revenues for fiscal year 2025. They came in at about $55.3 million. That was up about $9.5 million from the previous fiscal year. The majority of that increase is related to federal funding that was recognized in the form of ARPA awards. So you'll see that your federal grants category there increased up to 16% of your total revenue. I wouldn't anticipate that going forward, but that does obviously kind of skew the percentages that we're used to talking about relative to the rest of the city funding. However, other amounts really didn't change too significantly. It's really that federal grant portion. A similar kind of story on the general fund expenditure side. So total expenditures and transfers came in at about $54.3 million. This was up about $7.7 million or so from the previous fiscal year. And the majority of that increase is, actually all of that increase is related to transfers out that were made for your capital project fund to work on your public safety buildings. So total transfers out were about $9.1 million for the fiscal year, and the majority of that was for the capital project. So again, that's kind of going to skew our percentages we're used to talking about, but category-wise, relatively consistent when we factor out those larger transfers for the year. All right, here you can see your historical expenditures and transfers. So something I haven't seen in quite a while, just about anywhere, is that if we looked at your core expenditures and kind of exclude that transfer that happened that you can see in the orange portion of the 2025 bar, your expenses in your general fund actually decreased slightly this year. Not something we're used to seeing. Usually we're always kind of seeing that trend up, but it did in fact decrease slightly. And that's why I kind of color coded that orange portion for you so you could see exactly what was related to that transfer for your public safety buildings. All right, John kind of stole my thunder a little bit here. So I'm happy to report that fund balance in the general fund increased this year, even though you had that large transfer out and you funded your other programs. It did increase $1 million. So your total fund balance ended the year at about 18.6 million. Your fund balance is made up of 3 different categories. So starting at the top, very small sliver is your non-spendable dollars, about $1 million, pretty consistent with the last couple of years there. Your assigned fund balance came in at about 672,000. That was down from the previous year, kind of more in line with 2023, as a result of fewer carryovers within the fund balance category. And then your unassigned number is about 16.9 million. So a healthy amount of unassigned fund balance there for you to work with. Okay, changing gears, we're going to talk about your utility system, kind of overall, and you can see I presented for you your 3 different funds that you track. So you have sanitary sewer, water, and stormwater. And so on this chart, you can see relative to one another what total revenues in these funds look like versus total expenses. So you'll see that across all 3 funds, your revenues did exceed your expenses. Within utility systems, we would expect to be seeing this because you need those dollars to put into capital outlay. Capital outlay within utility systems doesn't run through the income statement piece of your financial statement. It goes to the balance sheet and then gets capitalized. And this year, across these 3 funds, there was about 4.4 million in total capital outlay that was added in those sections. The water fund, I wanted to make a note of this, the middle column there. Those total expenses, we put in here the special item that was about $2 million. So in a previous fiscal year, there was $2 million recognized of ARPA dollars for infrastructure projects in that fund. Your council approved kind of taking that money back out and reallocating that. And so within the financial statements, we needed to show a special item to account for those dollars kind of coming back out and getting allocated elsewhere. So that is included in there as well for you. Good news on the long-term liability portion. Here you can see your pension systems. So we have general employees on the left-hand side, police and fire on the right-hand side. General employee pension fund ends with net pension liability of about 28 million. So if you take the gray shaded column less the blue shaded column, that gives you what your net pension liability is. And then police and fire ended with about 78 million as a net pension liability. So both of those funds are over the 60% funding threshold. So excellent to see that.
That's the state funding threshold where we would not have to do a plan.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. On the OPEB side of things, or the healthcare piece, we have the general employees system came in with a liability, ending liability of about $26 million. These funds often aren't at the funding level that the pension systems are, kind of across the board. Some systems are a little better funded than others, but a lot are still working to get to the state required 40%. So general employee is at about 35.62%. And then police and fire ended the year with about a $41 million net OPEB liability. And that plan is a little better funded, coming in just over 44%. So making some good progress on that side. This year, the city recognized almost $12 million in total federal expenditures as a part of your single audit. We did audit the ARPA funds, so that accounted for about 9.9 million of your total federal expenditures, about 84%. So if you'll recall, maybe in some of your prior discussions, some of those expenditures actually happened in previous fiscal years, and you chose to kind of go back and pull forward those expenditures to use up some of this ARPA funding. So I'm really happy to let you know that within all of the testing that we do within the ARPA program, we did not have any findings. So no material weakness, no significant deficiency, and no material noncompliance within that program. All right, we'll kind of talk overall about internal controls and compliance. So I didn't put this on the slide, but I did want to mention it because you had an issue in the previous year that you were able to correct, and I thought I should perhaps highlight that for you. So if you'll recall, in the previous fiscal year, the Police and Fire Pension Millage Fund actually had a deficit still at the end of the fiscal year. And this year, that deficit was completely eliminated. So you ended up being about a year ahead of schedule on your deficit elimination plan that was filed with the state. So excellent work getting that fund out of that deficit. We were happy to see that. Secondly, as a result of the audit, we did not have any material weaknesses that we identified. So kind of in the level of what findings look like, a material weakness is the most severe, significant deficiency is next. And then there's things like management comments, which are really meant to point out kind of best practices where you could get better, or just areas where there are improvements, but not to a significant deficiency level. So we did have one item that we consider to be a significant deficiency and non-compliance this year, and it relates to the completion of bank reconciliations. So I want to back this up for you a little bit. Sometimes people think that when there's a finding, it's because something is only happening in one particular fiscal year, but that's not always the case. Sometimes we have to look at trends of what are happening at an entity to make our decision on if something's a management comment, significant deficiency, or a higher level of findings such as a material weakness. And so the last couple years, really, there has started to be more of a struggle in getting the bank reconciliations completed timely. So the state really would like to see them done within about 30 days to 6 weeks or so after month end throughout the year. And it's just taking longer to get them done. And then there are some unreconciled differences on those bank reconciliations. They are not material, which is why it's not a material weakness. But it is an area where we feel like improvement could be made. So some of it, I think, comes down to backing up to see original entry of transactions and looking at some of those systems to say, are all of our departments aligned in how we're going about accounting for things? Or are some making it more difficult based on how they do posting dates? And are there ways that we could make our system more efficient so when it comes to month end, the finance department has a much better chance of being able to complete these reconciliations timely? So an area we would really like to see some additional work, maybe some additional training if it's necessary. The last item on here, our governance communication letter. This is included in the information you were provided with. This letter encompasses several items that we're required to communicate to you as auditors. So I just want to touch on a few of those. The first being the fact that there is estimation within your financial statements. So we do provide in there a list of the significant estimate areas that we consider. Things like the net pension OPEB liability, your depreciation of capital assets, calculation of compensated absences, those types of items. And then we also include in there what we consider to be significant audit risks. So just because there are significant audit risks doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just part of our risk assessment process. So we have three this year. We had management override of controls and improper revenue recognition, which are essentially going to be significant audit risks in almost every financial statement audit. It's incredibly difficult to get out of those. And then this year, there was a new GASB standard for compensated absences, and so we consider the implementation of that to have a higher level of risk because it's new. So nothing anyone in the city did wrong. It's just part of our risk assessment, and we're now required to be communicating that directly to you. Also, within that letter, there's a section that talks about uncorrected and corrected misstatements. We did not have any material audit adjustments proposed this year, and we also do not have any uncorrected adjustments that management is choosing to pass on recording. So good news in that category. And then the last section of that letter talks about management comments. So we did have two management comments this year. The first relates to the preparation of the schedule of expenditure of federal awards. So that's going to be part of the single audit report, where essentially management lists out all the federal grants that had expenditures and information about those. And so within the preparation of that schedule for us this year, there were a few issues. We did have one grant that was included on there that shouldn't have been because it was expended in a previous fiscal year. And then there were a few pieces of other information that weren't complete that took a little bit more back and forth trying to get that information. This is can be kind of a common area that is really hard for finance departments to prepare, because oftentimes you have other departments going out and seeking these federal grants, and those departments might have all that information, and somehow it doesn't always quite make it back to the finance department. So we really recommend taking a look at the grant application process and making sure there's some kind of mechanism so that when other departments are going out and seeking these grants and being approved for them, that all the information the finance department is going to need to be able to prepare the CFA is actually within their department at the end of the fiscal year. Like I said, this is an area that I see other places that people struggle with. It's great getting this grant money, but the finance team does need to be able to account for it and prepare these schedules. And in order to do that, they need good communication with everyone to make sure they have that. And then the last item that we included related to kind of the overall year-end closeout process and preparing for the audit. Within the finance department over the last few years, really, there has been, relatively speaking, a decent amount of turnover within your department. And last year, we had a few more adjustments kind of coming to us after we received the trial balance, and it again happened this year. And so I thought it was a good time that we start having a conversation about how could the year-end close process be kind of tightened up and maybe reimagined a little so that it can be done timelier, so that maybe schedules and just the accounting behind the scenes that is happening isn't so complicated. And really, how can we make sure that everyone that's newer to a position is receiving the right amount of training and the right amount of tools so that they can really complete their piece of the year-end closeout. So I don't want you to think that this was just only this year kind of issue. This is one that's kind of been building, and as I look at it over the last couple of years, I really felt like it was time that, like I said, we have a conversation about it and figure out new ways to do things so that it isn't so much of an issue. I think that while I haven't had a long time working with your new finance director, I do think he has some good ideas on how to streamline some things, how to make some things more efficient. And so I hope maybe more people can embrace kind of what change could look like for this department so that they can kind of tidy things up and get things done a little timelier than what has happened. And I'm happy to take your questions.
Any questions? Mr. Rebello?
I guess I'll go first. Okay, first of all, this is a lot of work, and it's not a very simple thing. I understand that. So I'd like to thank all the department heads, our city manager, Dustin, and John. Thanks for pulling this all together. So it's not an easy thing. So I thank you. I realize how difficult it is. A couple of things, you touched on the one thing, and I had a chance to talk to John a little bit this afternoon, so a lot of my things got answered with him. Can you go back over the reconciliation with the bank? Because I guess that would be, I was going to ask you about the positive things and the negative things in our audit. That would, I guess, be ranked as a negative thing in our audit, and how does that get fixed, and what do we need to do?
Yeah, so to me, the finance department, I think, needs to, as I previously mentioned, start going back to those original points of entry and figuring out where are there pain points at the end of the month that could be remedied at some point during the month so that it's not so challenging to do the reconciliation. Sometimes over time, we enter things into the GL maybe because it's the quickest way for us to do it. Or maybe we enter things in not understanding how it's going to impact those users down the line. And so if we can communicate across departments where there are some of those issues, then I think you can tidy up some of the throughout the month recording so that it is easier at month end.
So we've had some changing and turnover within this. Do you think that that's, part of some of the reason of what happened and how this thing can slide through like this? I mean, this is an important thing, right? It guards against thefts. Not that we do anything like that, but it's just a good safeguard. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. So, that was one of the things I had in I don't know, I guess John Walters here has some streamlining type of things that he might be thinking of for next year and in the future here.
Yeah, I think we're going to look at the person that prepares the bank recs. Historically, there's been a lot of turnover in that position, and so we've had a lot of hands on deck to try to get those back up and up to date, and so it kind of pulls us away from preparing the audit because, we got to get the bank recs done. And so I think like audit preparedness and the bank recs kind of tie in together. They were getting adjustments after the fact because we had closed out another month. So now we have to give them adjustments for that. And then they book it, we book it. So we got to get caught up. And I think what we're going to do, or what I want to do, is just look at what are all the tasks that everybody's doing, especially the person that does the bank recs? Are there things that she does that keeps her busy that maybe she doesn't need to do, or maybe we can streamline it and make it simpler and she could focus more on the bank recs? Maybe we can change some of the processes at some of the departments that are causing some of the headaches and hiccups, so to make things easier. So we just have to have those conversations and hash it out. I need to get more into the details with the new person, with our accounting, our accountant that does this work, and figure out what to do, so.
Dustin?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off to some of the quick changes, as you guys know, we went from Pam to Michelle to Chantel now. So we've had 3 people in just the last
Right.
3 years. Some of the other things as well that just in the short time John has been here, how many bank accounts do we have that were going through multiple different avenues when you first got here? 9?
Probably more than that, maybe.
So, yeah, we had 6 different banks, 9 different accounts, and each department was going to different locations. So we have started to streamline that, kind of pull our cash back together. So we're not pulling from one location, putting it into another. And the other thing as well, as John had mentioned, it's very great that we have a lot of these extra activities. Recreation runs a very robust recreation department. Our golf course, you now have the Golf Now where people can sign up online. We have a lot of electronic stuff. We've actually then went to, when we're at our events, especially when we did the golf donations, we've done the library donations, we now have a few PayPal accounts set up. So when you have money coming in multiple different facets of way, to then get that money to the finance, and the finance then to take the money from that account to another account to another account, there is a lot of trying to know, and I think that's one of the things that Ally was bringing up, is making sure that, especially, recreation is a big one. It brings in a ton of money through a bunch of different varieties. We have a bunch of different, you'll see it the next budget year, committees, cool cities, activities, a lot of those who have their events and have their own account, or they don't have their own accounts, they're kind of pulled in. And that's another issue of making sure that their expenses are documented correctly, so then it gets to finance, and then it's documented there correctly. So because of the wide variety of things, is why we've always had these issues that Ally had brought up numerous different times. It's just the time we've got to really start hammering down to close those gaps and create that more continuity.
Sort of from the city to the auditor, and just try to simplify things for her.
And even for our staff. I mean, Marcia is a perfect example. She's been running around trying to do multiple things because, when Pam left, she was trying to help train Michelle. Then Michelle
Right.
left. Now
Okay.
she's retraining Chantel. So while she's also doing the training, she's also trying to keep up with her own stuff, which is preparing a lot for the audit, which on. So in that regard, we have had a lot of training and a very key aspect that, Michelle left right before the audit, right when the calendar year ended, or right when the fiscal year ended, right before the audit. So Chantel was trying to get caught up on everything Michelle was doing, plus learn her job with Marcia.
Maybe
And
that's
she was training her person that was replacing her over in CDI, so
Right.
it's like,
maybe that's something for us, not to discuss here, but in the future, if we might need some more help maybe in that department, if it simplifies things for everybody.
Yeah.
A couple of the strengths and weaknesses, as far as, John, what would you say our strengths and weaknesses are in our audit here?
I think the budgeting is really strong. I mean, you guys really take that seriously and are into the details, and it really helps when you're going through and doing the audit, because you're comparing the budget to actual, and it should be spot on, it should be close. So that helps, and I think you guys have a thumbprint on where the finances are, and so that's a big strength. And just the financial condition of the city is in very good shape.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add. It
Yeah.
looks like our finances look great here. So
Yeah.
a lot of hard work with our department heads. The property funds are up, the utility funds are up.
Yep.
So that all helps out. And I just wanted to make a couple other comments. I remember this, I can't remember when we discussed it, but we had moved the golf course separately, correct? We moved them into their own account, and I was wondering how that played out over the last year. Did that make a big difference?
I guess I'll speak on that first. So
Okay.
we had, golf course was always out, but it was also out with the harbor, the pool, and other recreational programs. So because your harbor, your pool, and all those require general fund dollars to be able to stay solvent, we move those back into the general fund rather than just keep transferring money out there. Our golf course is a standalone. It is required, as council's direction, we want the golf course to be able to fund its own activities with its own fees. So golf course is now the only standalone. That's why you'll see in 2023, there was a larger increase in our expenses and our revenue, is because we moved those two accounts, pool, harbor, back into the general fund. So that's why you kind of saw that increase. So the golf course has stayed out, and the golf course, as well as you can kind of see here, I think in the audit added about $38,000 to its fund balance too. So it was able to make money, pay for its expenses, plus add $38,000. Now, as we all know, it did have a few times where it did borrow money, but it was able to pay those annual lease payments back to the general fund, as council had indicated.
So financially speaking, it looked like almost all, I'm not sure if it was every fund, but
It was.
most of them everything was in black.
Yep.
So I think that's phenomenal on the part of our board here. And the very last question I wanted to ask is, because I've heard this discussed at, mainly on Facebook stuff, and people had concerns, because we just passed a police and fire millage, and they were concerned of how and if that actually ends up in the police and fire budget. It goes into our general fund first, John, right? And then where does it go from there? How does it get to the right spot?
Well, it'll come into the general fund. The police and fire are two departments within the general fund. We're expecting significant increases in both of those departments. So the extra money that comes in should cover those increases. I mean,
And as council is well aware, we just settled we settled one contract. We're working on the second of the contract. Well, actually, we settled 2 of 3. So we settled 2 of the 3 contracts. Anything that was for the police and fire millage has to go to police and fire. So we do have our police and fire millage, as council is well aware as well. The amount of money that we have spent in those just in the last few years, every single ambulance cost has went up tremendously since COVID and taken about 3 years to get them. Our fire engines have went up. A lot of the payroll, as we have all known through the inflation with COVID, has went up tremendously. So that eats up a lot of those costs. And we have 2 brand new buildings that we're building with the ARPA and the bond. But then we also, as council is well aware, we have issues that we are dealing with in those departments.
Just my last closing statement, I guess, on this. Again, I think everybody up here, from left to right, all our departments head, to get an audit like that, I think we all did a pretty solid job. Okay, so it's going to be part of something good. So thank you for your time.
All right, before I call on Council Member Brucey, the police and fire millage, that millage does not cover the entire police and fire budget, not even close, it's about half. So, I mean, it has to all go to it. We would never be able to fund police and fire without that millage, so. Councilmember Brucey.
Thank you. First off, the yellow memo we received states auditor Tifa Brownfield, SEM, SD, SMDA, and Teresa will be provided as soon as they're approved by their respective boards. Does that include the DDA as well?
good, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because it doesn't say DDA. Okay, so,
Okay.
We don't issue a separate report. for
no, I
DDA.
know, it says audits for Tifa, Brownfield, SEM, SD, SMDA, and Teresa will be provided as soon as they are approved by the respective boards.
Yeah, so
Also, the DDA as well, right?
No, because the DDA is within this statement.
Okay.
It doesn't have its own statement.
So it doesn't get any sort of separate audit?
Right.
The audit is included within this one, there's no separate report, but Tifa has a separate report, Brownfield does?
Yep.
Okay,
Those numbers are actually included in your in the big report, but they also get issued a separate.
that's why I was
report.
wondering, do we get a separate report as well for the DDA? But no, but we do for these other boards, even though the numbers are included within this one too.
Correct.
Okay. Why?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
That's the way your city has chosen to do that. Not every city does it that way. It's something that if the state is requiring you to file them separately, then by all means, continue doing that. But if you get with the state and they're not, then they're not a required report.
My assumption would be I wasn't here, the DDA was established right before I got here, is because your DDA is relatively new and the amount of money that is being brought in isn't of significant value, and where TIFA has been established for a lot longer.
And under a different
And under a
statute
different
too, that may
statute.
have different statutory requirements based upon how it
Yes.
was implemented.
So there could be a time when the DDA, if the DDA continues to keep growing and 10 years from now, when it actually has built up a much larger fund, it'll start triggering different requirements from the state. As of right now,
Okay.
it's very,
Could
very
we look
small.
into that at some
Yep,
point?
I will
and
look in and
just
get that
see,
clarified.
just to make sure we stay compliant and to make
Yes.
sure we're not doing more things that we necessarily need to do for the other ones listed. And just,
Find out the threshold.
okay, see, and this was touched, I think, a little upon, as response to some of Dave's questions. John and Dustin, please keep us updated on the internal control improvements as they're implemented, just, so we see that the issues being addressed in here are addressed. I know I spoke with Dustin today about the building authority, Lasan 316, if we could look into that as well. And finally, this one's a procedural question. The motion has us receiving and filing the fiscal year 2025 ACFR and related reports. The copy we received is marked draft, so are we receiving and filing the draft copy? Or is this draft, even though it's marked draft on every page, does this mean this is a final copy that we would be receiving and filing and make it a final copy upon our reception and filing?
So there were a couple of questions that were submitted today that are going to lead to, I think, a couple of footnote changes.
Okay.
But not significant in the way that you're using the information likely. A couple sentences that we're going to get tweaked, but essentially, the numbers are staying as they are.
So-
Those will not change.
Okay, so when we move to receive and file this, even though it's marked draft, this is going to be treated as a final copy as to our procedural element to it? Or are we going to be receiving the final copy that we would be approving?
Subject to
At some
footnote
point.
changes.
Yeah, and I guess we could ask that to council. It is going to be, as Ally had mentioned, none of the numbers, everything is actually staying. Anything that is changing will not be substantive in nature. Either it's grammatical or just carryover language that kind of had stayed, but there is no numbers. So if council were to adopt the audit as presented.
Yeah, receive and file. I know I was saying
Sorry,
approve too, but I mean receive and file.
As presented, we will also provide council with the ones without the word draft on them, because you'll get the hard binded
Yeah, we'll get the
with the
bind.
errors without the, or with the changes
Corrections.
that we had made to the small corrections.
Okay, and if the corrections become anything more substantive than that,
For
we'll
sure,
be
that'll
giving
come
it to
back.
us. Okay,
Yep.
so we're receiving and filing the final report, even though with the intention that there will be a few things changed here or there, but nothing that will be a substantive change.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Thank you. Yeah, Ally, back on the federal grants that you had touched on in terms of how they're being handled, were the ones that were affected were basically like the one-time ones we're getting from various departments, like one from FEMA, and that it wasn't like ARPA or CDBG?
Correct.
It was the unique ones that we had the last few years that created the issue? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that does kind of go back to, I remember, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember what it was with Renee or Laura at the time, but it was an issue of where things were, as we were approving contracts or purchasing material, and they're over budget. We weren't doing a budget amendment at the time, and then finance was like getting caught up with it later, creating a whole bunch of paperwork. That's where it kind of set the rule, like, hey, if you're gonna be amending the budget, do it with that motion and that, so that way finance knew it and knew they had to react to it right away. So I do think, John, it's like, as you hear that we are applying for grants or hearing grants, probably, you're gonna need to start checking, getting a list. I think it's great, department heads, make sure all the information is getting over to you, but also if there is information that your department needs, that they need to actually get from the agency itself, they gotta know that as well. So they know to ask those questions, right?
Right, and I think it'll be easier now that I'm here. It was some of the things that happened before I got here. Revenue came in and the expenses or the expenditures happened in a previous period. Really, it should have been on last year's report, and I put it on this year because we got the money this year. So I think now that I'm used to you guys approving grants as they come through, and I'm here and I'm making notes, I know who to call and ask for documentation. I think going forward, it should work itself out.
Okay.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, that's kind of the one that we got documented on, as he stated too, is, as council knows, a lot of these grants we receive, we approve, but then we take sometimes 6 months, 12 months before we ever receive the money.
Right.
So this was one that we had received, already done the work, did everything. It was documented as an expense on last year's audit, but the revenue wasn't documented as revenue. And then we received it, John earmarked it as revenue because we received it this year, not knowing that we had already spent it and already did the project. And it should have been documented as revenue even in last year as receivables, and it wasn't.
Okay, all right. And then you did talk about the getting to the year end and the issues that went on there. In terms of us receiving the unmodified opinion, which is what everybody wants, with the struggles that occurred to get there, is it basically we're still in an unmodified opinion because we figured everything out in the last 6 months and we got everything caught up, even though it may not have been easy, may not have been standard, but you feel we actually got there, and that's why we're still in an unmodified opinion, even with the struggles that went on.
Correct, yes. So in the end, all of the information that needed to be pulled together, and adjustments that needed to be made, those were made. So we didn't find any material issues that, one, we didn't find any material issues where we needed to propose an adjustment. And then beyond that, sometimes maybe we propose something and the management team says, no, we're not doing that. That's what can lead to a qualified opinion.
Got it, okay.
Yep.
All right, appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And then in terms of the bank reconciliation, that's also listed as a non-compliance. And just to clarify, is that a non-compliance to an accounting standard or to a treasury rule?
So at the completion of the audit, as auditors were required to file an APR with the state, so it's a reporting form, and it's one of the questions specifically on the APR is, were the bank reconciliations performed timely?
Okay, so it's a regulatory non-compliance potential issue, okay. And you touched on how council had moved the money from the water fund over for the police and fire buildings. We also had that large adjustment for the police and fire wages that basically we assigned the ARPA money to the wages in 21 and 22, even though we're recognizing that this year. On that page in the audit where you're calling out as a very unique transaction, you didn't include the police and fire change there as well, which I think is also very unique. Could you kind of explain the difference between the water fund transfer versus the police and fire wages transfer to fund the buildings? And why those were handled differently in the audit?
Yes. So within the water fund, because that revenue was recognized in a prior period, there has to be a way to get it out of that fund and into the capital project fund where it wasn't yet recognized and needed to sit as unearned revenue. And so the mechanism to make that happen can't be a transfer in and transfer out, because the accounting doesn't work for that. So that's why it specifically went through as a special item. And special items have specific reporting requirements within the footnotes, which is why that gets explained within the footnotes.
Okay.
Versus in the general fund, those expenditures did happen in a previous period and the revenue was recognized this year, but there isn't a required kind of reporting requirement for
Okay.
that particular piece.
So that's the key difference. Even though it was meant to cover wages from 3 years ago,
Right.
the revenue from ARPA wasn't recognized until this same fiscal year, and that was transferred out in the same fiscal year, so that's handled as a regular transaction.
Exactly.
Doesn't need a special note. Okay. All right, and these ones are actually, I think, more for John. I think going to the response that you had submitted for fixing the bank reconciliation going forward, a suggestion you had on there of that to basically reinforce training or have targeted training, and then you're going to go through and review and update procedures. Suggest maybe flip those. Probably look at what all of our procedures are today, what should the updates be, and then really focus on the training. You know,
Right,
make sure,
right.
you know, do we have a good process that they can be trained on going forward in that versus trying to reinforce what we're doing today, which created issues for the last couple of years on that going forward. So that's a suggestion there. On the management memo from administration, on page 3 of that, it listed all the different millages, and I thought it was interesting. It listed the past values of the millage, the ones that, the police and fire millage, what it was at and what Headley reduced it to, the road millage, what it was at, what Headley reduced it to. It did say that both millages were reapproved, both were increased, but didn't include the increased number. I just thought that was like an interesting omission of, you listed the other millages in the memo, but the ones the voters recently approved, you didn't list that value. And I just think for more of a historical document.
This is the management discussion and
Yes,
analysis.
yeah.
So, and I guess we both kind of talked about that. One of the main reason is because those didn't get passed until after the fiscal year. So if we did a snapshot.
You still reference them.
We did, and actually that was more
It's
just.
reference as was passed.
Right, and I guess
So-
we probably really shouldn't have put that in there. It was more just because it had passed by the time this came out, but by the
Right.
time the audit was.
Because the
it really
memo was
wasn't.
dated for December.
Correct,
right, when
so
it-
the
when it's
memo we
finalized,
knew,
so-
but when the audit was done, those millages hadn't passed yet.
Got it, okay. And also in there, it did have the, referencing the lake, the Clean Lake St. Clair millage, that was back in 1999. But really, that millage has been just for bond payments all this time, and it referenced how we're cleaning sewers and things like that and doing maintenance, which that's not really happening with that millage money.
Correct.
And that, so I think that's just something in that memo to get clarified. Also in that memo, there's a list of a bunch of accomplishments that were more, they weren't really audit or even financial related. That, I'm flipping through trying to get to that page. Are just some like strange things, like several individual projects like install EV charging stations at Veteran Memorial Park listed in our Parks and Rec Department, even though CDI was working on that, but in that case, those EV stations aren't even working yet. Right, but it's just looking through these accomplishments, I'm not sure it really fits with what should be within the financial management memo. I think another example of how police department is listed as hiring new officers, maintain appropriate staffing levels as senior officers retire. That same line doesn't exist in the fire department, even though I know the fire department does the exact same thing.
These are,
Right.
yeah, unfortunately, these are bullet points that's been in our audit after audit. I would
Yeah,
love to be able
we
to
had
take
that-
those out.
We were talking a bit about that earlier today,
I know, I'd
Dustin,
love-
and even though that these are like carryover discussions, it's just not a matter of, hey, pull out last year's, let's just update a few words. It's actually, make sure it's accurate, I guess, going forward with that one. And then actually in the audit on page 324, at some point, I've seen this on the tax bills. We changed the Lake St. Clair Clean Water Initiative to say it's the SEMSD Clean Water Initiative. I'm not sure where that came from, because that money doesn't go to SEMSD, it still
Right.
comes to the city. So I don't know where that started from. I don't think it started with just the audit. I think somehow, somewhere else, someone picked up that nomenclature and ran with it. Because it appeared on the tax bills that way. Where I think in the past, it was Clean Lake St. Clair was on the millage bill, so. And then also on that same page is a part of that, because that was one of the things that got listed as having, the appropriation was a little bit over. And that was strange, because they had the appropriation at 2.616 million, but the bond payment was only 1.4 million. So we're not sure is that, as a department, how that could end up being over if the bond payment was only 1.2 million less than that. So if we could look at that one as well. And, also back in the, one of these things that get carried over, back to the management memo. It says that we use a 5-year financial model, and we've been using it since 1996, and I haven't seen one since Doug Hay was our finance director the last few years, so. If that still exists and we're still using it, that's awesome. Normally that was included with the budget and that we're supposed to get every year. Because it is a very good practice to do. And last set in my head, it's really, Dustin, you and I talked about this earlier, I think it's great. The fund balances basically increased across the board. Street fund balance was up to 13.9 million. That's also just means there's money there that we're not using to fix streets, because last year was only 9.6 and that. So we've got to really up the ante on getting street projects going and getting those through the system and use the money that we're being given from the state. And all those are the email questions I had earlier, so that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion
Move to
to,
receive and file.
Support.
with those footnote notations, which will come to us if they're significant. right?
They'll come to you, yeah.
All right.
Send it to everybody.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion
Yeah.
passes 6-0.
Thanks, Ally.
Ally, thank you very much. Nice job, nice presentation. John, thank you. Appreciate the hard work. You got a couple of processes to put in place, but we'll look for those for next year.
Mayor,
Yes,
comment.
yeah, okay, Mr. Rebello.
I just, I'm not sure if the spelling is right. I'm gonna try to catch one, okay?
I think I know, I circled it too, but I didn't bring it up.
Okay. I don't usually do this one, but ninth.
Ninth.
The word ninth, okay? Potato, right in the first sentence.
In the background brief of the yellow memo.
Okay. It's Ninth. Okay.
I circled it too,
Not a
but I
big
didn't
deal, but I
say it.
finally caught her on one.
I circled it too,
Okay,
right
all
there.
right.
All right, is that it, Mr. Rebello? All right, next up is the 2025 Benjamin Statler Canal Dredge, consideration of necessity for the creation of a special assessment district for dredging, and adopt a resolution to set a second public hearing. So the first thing is the first public hearing. We'll open the public hearing if anybody would like to speak. Public hearing is open. Anybody? Once? Twice? All right, public hearing is over. Let's move to the adoption of a resolution to create the special assessment district and to set a public hearing on January 5th to review the assessment roll, hear objections, and confirm the roll. All right, Councilman Russo? Councilwoman Russo?
Yes, I guess maybe could we just receive an overview, maybe Mark or somebody, regarding the differences between this new project for this canal versus the one we had approved, the creation of the SAD Fort in October. Or administration, just,
Yeah, no, I'll let Mark.
okay, thank you.
All right, Mark, come on up. Just give us your name and address so we know that you're in the neighborhood of this.
Hi, everybody. Mark Hodorek, 22489 Benjamin.
Okay.
The differences, there's been so many things going on, I have to keep it straight. But when we tried to bring a barge in to stage for the work so that he could have his home for the winter and start working on the jetty, couldn't get the barge in. So he said, well, you know, we can do it another way. We can do it from the lake side rather than from the canal side of the seawall jetty. But that's a different price. The last letter summary that I submitted gave the exact prices, and this one gives the price for the lake side rather than the canal side. So that's the biggest difference. And in the same respect, with the dredging, our original plan was to dredge and offload at the Statler Bridge, which is halfway down the street on the Statler side. Well, if we can't get the barge that far, we can't use that as an offload point. So our plan B would be to fill the barge and have a second barge out in the lake, transfer the spoils onto the second barge, and then take that to an offloading point. A much more expensive proposition, so the number of cubic yards we could remove would be much less. The one thing we did want to keep constant, because the neighbors felt strongly about this, and it's only right. We didn't want to change the amount of money that everybody is paying. We wanted to keep that constant, so we did that. We changed the scope of the project. That's why we're back here today. But the amount per resident stays the same. We're going to get less of a project. It's more expensive than we thought, but so it is. And that's why we have a reduced
Yep.
project, and that's the scope that has been changed.
Yep, there's, the previous one was 2,500 yards. This is approximately 1,300, but also it includes to repair the jetty, correct?
Correct. And even that 1,300 might not be exactly 1,305. It might be.
It says approximately, so I think
Yeah.
you're covered
Yeah,
there in the language of the
Well,
resolution.
that's the thing. It's a moving target. It's a dynamic situation, and it's hard to say a couple months before what you're going to actually need to have done.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to keep above the board here.
And I'm glad to see that you had went out, you redid and I know this was probably a hardship, but you redid the petition process and you submitted necessary ones, and we're still looking at 37 valid yes votes. Last time, I think there were 39 valid yes votes, so you just had two people, I think, not voting. It's not that they didn't vote.
So I had 4 days to do this.
And you did very, very good.
And I still got that many. I could have gotten more if I had more time, but
Yeah,
people are
because
out of
it
town.
says
and-
no one voted not in favor. It's just we have 14 people not voting, which can happen because you can't track them down in 4 days.
That's right.
So you still have the necessary requisite amount of support behind this project of the people who are going to be the ones paying for it, even with the change in scope. I guess this is a procedural question for the city attorney, maybe. We already had passed a resolution previously for the different scope back in October. Do we have to do anything to rescind the previous SAD resolution we passed?
No, I don't believe so. I think that this motion, if passed tonight, would supersede that.
Okay, so do we have to include that type of language? That's what my question, should we include that type of language in the motion than to rescind the previous SAD resolution?
Yes, the maker of the motion could include such language.
Okay, yeah, I just want
Or
to make sure.
just say that this supersedes any other previous motions regarding.
The previous resolutions, we voted on, we did pass the resolution. Okay, I will move to approve this new resolution to create the special assessment district for the 2025 Benjamin Statler Canal District, to set the public hearing on January 5th, 2026, to review the assessment roll, hear objections, and confirm the roll, and included is rescinding the previous SAD motion, SAD resolution we had passed in October of 2025.
Support.
Any other questions? It's been moved by Councilwoman Rusi, seconded by Councilman Rebello. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes 6-0.
Happy
Abby, you
holidays.
got those changes?
See you next year.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Nice job. Abby, you got those changes, right? Okay. All right, next up is bids, contracts, and purchase orders. Request to award the Kite Monroe Playground contract funded through CDBG. I see Liz is close, and Rob Spinazzola at the mic for Parks and Rec.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Yes, Liz is here to answer any questions you might have, but she's feeling a little under the weather, so I'm going to handle most of this here. And if you do got something special, she is here to help out. So, exciting night for us to bring this forward to you. And one other thing in the spirit of tonight's earlier conversation, John, we did just receive a grant last week, so we'll get you all the things you need, so you let me know what that is.
The process is now in place. Well done.
So yeah, the Kite Monroe Universal Access Playground Replacement Project was part of the original Land and Water grant that we were awarded in 2020. And I know it's 2025. This has obviously taken some time with COVID, and you guys know the story with the lights and the budget. So due to that funding issue, we'll be using CDBG funds to pay for this portion of the project, as we still have to install the playground to meet the grant requirements from that 2020 grant. The way we did put the bid out was we were going to ask companies to give us their best proposal for the dollar amount we felt comfortable bidding out with at that time. Those bids went out in October and opened on November 10th. One major requirement that we had in the grant was to make sure there were as many universally accessible elements as possible. And I'm going to list all the things that we did include with that. Communication panel with pictures and a full English alphabet to help foster communication with nonverbal individuals. Precision-tuned musical panel to encourage social and creative play. A merry-go-round that's at the transfer height for those in mobility devices with postural support and grip areas. A universal expression swing providing face-to-face swinging with parent and caregiver, and a child with a molded plastic seat for users that require postural support. And then the playground structure with the ramps and the transfer platform. The ramp access is up to 2 feet. There is an ADA crow's nest panel that allows users in a wheelchair to comfortably interact with the gizmos and the learning apparatuses without twisting their body to reach. There's a slide transfer, which helps children with wheelchair and mobility devices to comfortably access the slide while maintaining their dignity. Sensory wave link, which, Matt, if you pull that up, it's kind of a different feature that I don't think we've seen on many of our other. So it's, yep, right there. So go to that transfer between, just take your mouse, between the slide on the left, very left, down, down left, down left, down left.
I feel like I'm getting,
So the piece between that slide and that other panel. So that bridge essentially there. So they call it a sensory wavelength for tactical and sensory stimulation. Essentially, it's a bridge that provides hand grips and transfer area that allows children of all abilities to move throughout that structure. And transfer platform for additional ADA access. So a lot of ADA features that we've included in this playground, not to mention the whole playground is poured in place. So this will be the first playground of that kind for us in the city. We received 3 proposals that were all reviewed within the playground subcommittee. From those meetings, we identified Sinclair's proposal here as their original design achieved most, if not all, of our goals. And then based on the feedback from the subcommittee, we tweaked that design to eventually land on this one that's in front of you tonight, which incorporates some baseball elements which weren't in the original design.
Yeah, change the slide to
There you
that
go.
one, yeah.
And then ultimately achieves the universal access playground for everybody still. So, one thing that we are proposing to do is move the playground closer to the parking lot. Many of you have been there. The playground kind of sits there. You can see the original location. Sits further back in the park. We are proposing to move it closer. This helps promote that playground to other users in the city, as the last playground was kind of hidden back there, and then this makes it a lot easier for handicapped users to access that playground now. Total approved budget for this was $367,287. We are bringing forward to you a total cost on this project of $371,265. And we would request that you approve the option we presented with the changes made by the playground subcommittee. That would include amending the budget to $371,265 and increasing the CDBG budget to cover that cost with a 20% contingency. So, any questions?
Candace?
No questions, just, it was Ron and myself on the playground subcommittee, so this has been a long time coming, like you had said, through no fault of anyone in the city, through a fault of we're very pleased with the grant we had received, but it took a long time for us to receive that grant. And we actually, I think, got through every other playground in the city and improved it with new equipment, and then we got this one. And anyone who's been to Kite Monroe knows that this is a park that definitely needs a lot of love in the playground. So I'm super excited that we finally have this in front of us to approve. we are recommending, well, I think if you look at the other two proposals we received, we are recommending the strongest proposal, I think, with the most bang for the buck. What was the Sinclair is giving us some sort of discount, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head, but if I remember right, it was around $60,000 discount.
Yeah, so we're receiving a lot of play elements for the money we are putting into it. A lot of this project, like you said, we are doing pour in place, which I think is fantastic for accessibility purposes, for kids with mobility aids, wheelchairs, even moms with strollers. I think this will be really good for them. And that's a chunk of the cost of this. It's not just the equipment, but we are getting a lot of bang for the buck equipment-wise too, especially with this proposal. What you did address is that main playground structure. What I also liked about it too was it has a component for the kids ages, 1 to 5, and then the other half of it is for 5 to 12, I think, are the age ranges. So even within that one main structure itself, there is versatility and variability that can appeal to younger kids as well as older kids, and they can play on the same structure but on different parts of the structure too, which is nice.
Yeah, so to that, yeah, there's an area for a 2 to 5 and then a 5 to 12. And what's really unique about this one is, for lack of better terming, there's kind of a small, a medium, and a large slide, right? So there's 3 different size slides on just this one structure, kind of going to accommodate all ages of kids.
Yep, and I also like that we have the variety in the swing types. When I go to the playground with my nephew, the swings, no matter what park it is, the swings tend to be a very popular component of them. So as you can see, we have 6 swings for different ages of kids or different abilities of kids. So there's a lot of versatility with the swings that are being offered in this proposal. And I'm going to give, I'm very quick to criticize administration when I feel it's needed, but I also am going to be very quick to give praise. And the idea and proposal to move this playground front and make it more of a feature of this park and not just an afterthought is a wonderful, wonderful idea. If you look at what we did with Bryce, where Bryce was similar, we had one little old structure that was situated out by the baseball field that only would be utilized if at all by people who were at the park for incidental other reasons. They were there watching somebody play baseball and, oh, I'm going to go climb on this playground while my brother does that, something along those lines. We moved it to the front, right off of the parking lot, Bryce, and now that playground is used by people who see the playground as a destination in and of itself, not just as a incidental feature of a park they're already at, but nothing people will go out of their way to attend. You know, that's my that's my nephew's favorite park to go to is Bryce. Never set foot in it before, but he really likes that playground, and you see it's busy every single time my dad would take him. So
Wonderful.
You know, the fact we have we have playgrounds in the north end connected with obviously Veterans Memorial and with the schools and all, but we don't have a neighborhood park in the north end. And this kind of will transform this part of Kite to feature more like a neighborhood park where we can have kids who will just be at the park to come and play. Not because they're there incidentally because their older sister's playing, baseball or something, but because they want to come and enjoy the playground facilities. And its location to the parking lot not only helps that with visibility off of Harper, it makes it more of a focal point, but also accessibility, like you mentioned, where we have families park there and go to the playground and enjoy it. So I think that's an awesome idea why we're redoing this, is to relocate it to a more user-friendly portion of the park, and you also get, too, safety-wise, more visibility off of Harper as well for, our police to be able to monitor as they drive by to make sure it's not getting vandalized, which unfortunately is always a risk when you put new equipment in. So that's really cool, and kudos to administration for including that as part of this proposal. I think that's a fantastic and needed idea, and that's not something I even had conceived of as a possibility, but we're also saving some money too by doing this because we don't have to pave as much, correct?
Correct.
Can
We
you talk
won't.
a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
so, Matt, if you can go back to the overhead. So if we were to put it back in the original location there, the walkway that goes behind that baseball diamond on the bottom there, as part of the original grant, we were gonna have to pave that. So when we were awarded this, the agreement included putting a playground in, but also paving that entire area there to give another access point to that playground. By us moving it up front, we won't have to do that paving now, which allowed us to probably increase this playground by about $50,000, $60,000 would be my guess.
Yep, and we already have some fencing there, correct, too? Because when I first saw this, we really wanted to double check that and confirm that, because obviously when you locate a playground closer to a parking lot, you want to protect against kids making mad dashes into the parking lot, but there's already some barriers to prevent that from happening, correct?
Right, there's a fence right in front of where the cars will be parking.
Okay, perfect. I did question, why is it a 20% contingency? That seems pretty high compared to what we've done on other projects. It's a requirement.
Standard
Yep,
CDBG.
I figured it must be something like that, so, okay, cool. No, thank you for your work on this. I am so excited to see this, and, and like, Rob said, we received the first proposal, we decided we liked Sinclair the best by far. I think it was pretty unanimous on the committee. Then we discussed, because this is one of our premier facilities and it's baseball themed, and we're already doing a lot of investment there, like we did with the skate park, like we're doing through help from the Shorewood Kiwanis with the new pickleball courts and tennis courts. We thought, well, maybe if we wanted to see if we could add some theming and tie it to baseball, maybe have some benches, with their soccer theme because of its proximity to the soccer fields. Maybe we could get some sponsorships for that, but that's why this is being presented as an option 2. We did go with the option a little bit above budget. That was to allow us to put forward a proposal that includes some theming, like we've done with a lot of our newer parts, with some theming to give it a little bit more character and uniqueness. We thought, well, baseball would be a perfectly appropriate theme for this park, given it's a big baseball facility, and we wanted to present council with that option as well. While we're doing this, it's harder to add things with board in place, so now would be the time to do it, not in like a phase 2. So that's why we are putting this forward as an alternate type of proposal, but this would be the one I think would be really cool to see, just given with what we've done with the other playgrounds and how this is situated in a baseball park, and we'll have a lot of visibility from the road as well. So that's why it's option 2, to see if people were willing to spend a little bit more money, but if not, there's always option 1, which is the proposal as received. So, thank you.
Mr. Rebello.
First of all, thanks, Ron and Candace, for putting a lot of time into this, and administration. I mean, this is not your ordinary playground. This is built sort of for special needs too, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely, and that was the main part of kind of this design, was to create a fully universally accessible playground, which we don't have. I mean, we're close at Blossom, but this one is fully universally accessible, and has a bunch of features on it that will be great play elements for everybody.
Basically, you're moving looks like you're going to move the playground up northeast. Is that what that is? Sort of pinned up against the soccer?
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct.
Which is a great location because there's so many kids out there watching the games and everything. I originally, when I looked at this, going, well, option 1, I mean, it's still a great playground too. And I had a chance to talk a little bit to Candace, and I went and talked to Liz today, and she sort of explained it to me a little bit more. And even that baseball mitt, that big baseball mitt, the city manager Lent could even catch a ball in that thing. But the main reason for that is, what I liked about it is autistic children tend to sort of want a little peace and quiet sometimes, and they can sort of tuck away in there and get away from things for a little bit, which I know somebody that has a child with autism, and she definitely agreed with that. So that sort of swayed me to option 2, and it's fantastic, and thanks for giving us the options. Okay?
Thank you.
So,
Anybody else?
I guess,
Well, I'll just say, before we vote on this, what a great job you guys did.
Thank you.
And you did save some additional money on, I think we sized the pouring place down a little bit too, to save some money, in addition to moving it and having not to pour other concrete. So there was a bunch of things. And then I know we've all had, I know I've had at least 3 parents of autistic children who said, there's nothing for us. And so now I can say, well, yes, there is, and it's going to be there. So my question is going to be, Rob, on the benches, because we've already reached out, I think, to some of the, the baseball organizations, soccer organizations. What's the timing to make sure that we can put those benches in, and that won't affect anything that we're doing, will it, relative to?
So I'll have to,
You know,
yeah, I mean, I'll have to get back to Sinclair. It'll depend on what type of bench and where we want to locate it, right? So if we go with a bench similar to that, right, that's actually in the playground area, we'll probably have to make a decision about those fairly soon, because
Okay.
they need included as part of the plan. If we're going to look to maybe add pads around the outside and put a, help me with the word, the bench just mounts into the
To the cement?
top
Or-
mount cement, yeah,
Yeah.
top, gets mounted in from the top there. Surface mounting, thank you.
Surface, okay.
We can do that at any time. So it really just will depend on the style of bench.
All right. And so if somebody wanted to sponsor a bench in the playground, what would the timing be on that, do you think? January, February?
Yeah,
Two-
probably fairly soon. I would want to get with Sinclair, get the cost on that
Okay.
bench. It's probably listed in here as individually, so I can probably pull that pretty quick. But if we want anything themed-wise on the bench, that's going to take a little bit more time. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll get in touch with them probably first thing tomorrow.
And with that too, what
Dustin,
Ron,
go ahead.
sorry, what Ron is talking about is during our playground committee is reaching out to the baseball and the soccer organizations and trying to get some themed benches to go around here. And trying to utilize as much of the port and play, because this is like a very unique bench for us. We probably want to leave as much of that available even for kids to run, play tag, touch, play different stuff. So it is typically what you'll see in a lot of these playgrounds, off of the port and play, a cement area with the bench being there where they can kind of watch rather than putting the benches in the
Got it.
port and play. So then it leaves
Got
us a little bit more time to be able to come back after and add that cement.
So, and it, actually, if you see here, all those little circles that are within there, those are the drop zones or fall zones, as they call them.
Okay.
You can't put anything within those zones, so we'll have to see where in
Okay.
that schematic we could be able to place a bench.
All right. No, that's good. And I think we've already got some interest in terms of benches, so if you want to get some pricing, and even if we have to put it outside or maybe on the west side of that, on the grass, or even to the north side of that, even across the sidewalk, just so that there's something there. But we've also had some commercial inquiries as well, so who knows? Okay, well, we'll entertain a motion. Somebody like to make a motion for
I'll
this?
move to approve option 2 with the 20% contingency as required by CDG, whatever. Thank you.
Motion by Councilmember Rusi, supported by Councilmember Burgess. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Rob, great job. Liz, thanks for all your good help on this.
Thank you, everybody.
Dustin, I guess you get some praise on that, too. Way to go.
They did all the work.
Okay. Next up is the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Karen, supported by Councilman Rebello. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 6-0. Updates and follow-ups from council meeting.
Mr. Vitale and Ms. Rusi requested the garage sale sign be changed to garage sale permit in the updated fee schedule. The language will be changed to reflect garage sale permit instead of garage sale sign. Ms. Rusi mentioned that a garage sale permit should be removed from the sign ordinance section and possibly be separate as its own section. The Community Development and Inspections Director found a garage sale ordinance on MML that with a few changes she believes would work great in St. Clair Shores. It is being reviewed internally and then will be sent to the city attorney and then to council. Ms. Rusi requested that the Community Development Department review the special land use ordinance to determine whether certain items currently requiring special land use could instead be handled through the site plan process and removed from the ordinance. The Community Development and Inspections Director has reviewed the special land use ordinance and passed the suggestions on to the city planner to review. The items then will be taken to the Planning Commission in early 2026. Ms. Rusi suggested adding a penalty clause to the fee schedule for situations where required permits were not obtained. The Community Development and Inspectors Director will work with the city attorney on a penalty clause. Mayor Wabi requested a photo of the older trucks be emailed to council to show their current conditions. Attached through that email and then on your packet is all the information. And then Mayor Wabi mentioned that Hall's nursery door has flown open and requested it be addressed. It has now been demoed.
The whole building's gone.
They overdid it.
We got you.
And that's an interesting short truck that we have. All right, well done. All right, let's move on to comments by individual council members, and if memory serves, what's that? Oh, we need a motion for that? I think we did a motion for.
No.
It was part of consent.
It was our consent agenda.
Okay. So we'll move on to comments by individual council members. We'll start with Ms. Rusi.
Oh, thank you. I'll keep it brief tonight. First off, thanks to everyone who volunteered for or donated to the Goodfellows a couple Saturdays ago. It's always really heartwarming to see all the support the organization gets. They've been working in the community for 99 years, and they've touched a lot of families and created some great memories for a lot of families, too. I volunteered with my sister again in the Village Market lobby, and I was not there for 15 minutes, and I already had somebody who came up to me with a donation and said, you know, you guys helped my family when I was a little girl. And I get a couple of those every year, and I tell you what, it makes my whole holiday season to hear something like that, where the good work is recognized, and it made a difference in someone's life to the point where they remember it decades and decades and decades later and want to help pay it forward too. So thanks to everyone who donated, and John and I were in the lobby on behalf of the Shorewood Kiwanis of 9 Harper Kroger on Saturday, the next Saturday after that, manning the Salvation Army kettle, and that was a lot of fun. So thank you to everyone who stopped by and donated, or at least, you know, said Merry Christmas or something. I know not everyone always carries cash on them. I rarely do, quite honestly, at this point, and it's nice when people just stop and say Merry Christmas, and you can, you know, it makes the time go by fast, and we had a pretty good time greeting people in the lobby, and people did stop and help out, which is really nice. And thank you to the Shorewood Kiwanis for manning the kettles there and at the other Kroger all day on Saturday. St. Isaac Jode's Men's Club is having their 2020 Chili Bowl and Soup Fest cook-off, and also a beer tasting with craft beers on tap for purchase at St. Isaac Joe's on January 25th, 12:30 to 6:30. Prizes awarded for Judge's Choice, People's Choice, Best Booth Design. There is still time to enter your chili soup into the ring and try to win one of those fantastic prizes. It's a lot of fun, too. It's a really good community event. So if you're interested in finding out more information on how to enter, contact Craig at 586-945-6496 or email Craig at adprowersystems.com. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Frederick, for the cookies. It's really sweet that your family's continuing the tradition, and I'm continuing the tradition of eating them before the council meeting's over.
Come on.
No, I have one.
I thought Logan was going to get one.
He can get his own pizzazz.
All right.
So thank you for the cookies, and thank your family for them. It's really nice that you guys are continuing the Christmas tradition. And finally, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and a joyous New Year to everyone at home watching us and your families. That's it. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. Actually, just a few acknowledgements this week. First, Police Department, you know, last week, a lot of news stories about what they prevented from potentially happening. And I think when you hear a lot about national tragedies that occur, the narrative afterward were, well, there were red flags, and people didn't see it. In this case, your officers saw the red flags, and you took care of it, and kept the neighborhood safe, and kept the city safe. So kudos to all the detectives, officers that were involved in that investigation. It was over several months, taking advantage of certain situations that were going on to get the evidence needed to have that perpetrator put away for a while. And hopefully that person gets the help they're going to need. But most important thing, you kept the neighborhood safe, you kept the city safe. So greatly appreciate that. Next, the building maintenance department, Brandon and Jacob. Beautification, when we go to put out the wreaths with all the lights, there's outlets that we only expect to work one time a year. We don't check them the rest of the time of the year, and so sure enough, it gets nice bitterly cold, and I've got electrical outlets around the city that don't work, and dispatching Brandon and Jacob around to fix them, whether they're buried in the snow or up high in a light pole somewhere in the city. So greatly appreciate those guys that for keeping on top of that and getting all that work done. And also the fact of, Brandon pointed out, the front of City Hall, the seal that's on the top, I don't think any of us ever realized that that actually illuminates. And he figured it out because the one in the back illuminates. I never remembered the one in the front of City Hall illuminating and that. So Brandon figured it had to. Jacob, he's kind of skinny. He could fit in the hole up there. So Brandon put him up in the hole to go replace the light for the seal at the front of the city. So now that illuminates with everything else. So I think that's just a testament to how those guys operate. And I know there's a lot of staff where they have to just go in and fix random stuff all the time and how hard those guys work. So greatly appreciate them.
Was he at least holding his feet when he jammed them in the little circle?
Did not ask details.
They tied a rope to his ankle.
Did not want to have any type of OSHA,
Yeah, sounds like an OSHA issue to me.
type conversation with those guys, as long as it gets done. And last, to DPW workers, we're in water main break season basically at this point. Council, we get, during the week, if there's a water main break, we get an email notification from administrative staff at DPW, and actually Councilman Rebello and I, we've had both last Saturdays, DPW knocking at our doors that, yeah, we're gonna need to shut the water off for an hour because we got a break in your street. So that can't be fun. In that of not only out working in the cold, digging into the ground, dealing with water at the same time, that is just brutal work that those guys have to go through. And they're literally doing one a day, if not two a day now. So greatly appreciate all their hard work, as I know that water main break season will continue. Just what happens when we have an aging infrastructure like we do. So with that, everyone, have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we will see you in 2026. Thanks.
Chris?
Yeah, I will try to make it quick as well, but I'll say I did have the chance to participate this year in the Goodfellas collection. One of the benefits, I suppose, of being retired is a little more time to spend on some city events. And it was interesting to find out that probably one of the biggest enemies of revenue collection are the automated traffic lights. Because just when I would think I was going to get a pack of cars, that light would turn green, and I'm like, okay.
And you got to get out of the way.
Yeah, and you got to get out of the way, and so that worked against. But I was told I turned in a pretty good amount of money.
Yeah,
So
well done.
I think that there were a lot of generous people who really made a point to, as Candace said, to say that it meant a lot to them. I've heard that same comment as well. Other than that, I'll just say Merry Christmas to everyone. The tree lighting was great again this year. A lot of good events in the city, and thank you, Frederick family. We're now 50% gone on this. And I think that since Kip isn't here, who's getting his?
Believe me, he already called and wants to know if I gave his away.
Oh. Okay. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Linda?
Well, I had a really busy this last couple weeks. I was also at the Goodfellows, took over the corner that Ron and Dave had when you guys left, and somebody left their coffee in the street. Was that you? I'm like, what's this coffee doing here? Right where the cones go.
Just what it looked like, left behind.
It only takes the root.
And it was almost
Was it a
full.
cone
So
glass?
you wasted a whole thing. But yeah, I had a few people driving by that it was really kind of scary. And the light, I actually switched corners after a while because the light was really driving me nuts. But I also want to thank because when we went back to St. Lucy's afterward, my husband and I, when we were done, the firemen, especially Nick, does the chili for everybody coming in. And I sat down and I had texted him and said, is it gluten-free? And waited around for his answer, and it was. So I got to partake of that. And it was just really, it's a great atmosphere there. We ended up staying at St. Lucy's for about another hour, just chatting away with people, and it was a lot of fun. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the tree lighting was magnificent. We had a new station this year called Letters to Santa that the Waterfront Environmental Committee had put together, and the kids loved it. We had so many letters to Santa and presented them to Santa when he got here, and so that was just a real, I enjoyed it very much, and I got to be indoors for most of it, so that was really good.
Mrs. Claus.
And Mrs. Claus, correct. And they're going to be at Listening Truth tomorrow. I'm really excited about it. Also, went to the community chorus concert that was at Lakeshore, and I was blown away at the music, and my fellow council members were there with Candace, Dave, and John, and the mayor was there as well, and we just had a really good time. And one of the amazing thing was that I didn't know it was happening, but Heidi, who is our chairman for the Waterfront Environmental Committee, did violin solos, like 3 of them. And she was magnificent, and I was just blown away by all that had taken place there. So great week of things that were happening, and can't wait to see more things happening. And just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and also I will say thank you ahead of time for Rick, who will be enjoying these since they're not gluten-free.
They're not gluten-free, sorry about that. Dar's
But
not happy
thank you very
about that.
much, and I appreciate all of the council and our staff, and I hope that everybody has just the best Christmas ever.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Chris mentioned he did very good at the Goodfellows for the collection of the money, and so did Ron. But I beat you guys.
Yeah, right.
Okay? It
First
wasn't
time.
by much, but I beat you. When
Well
you're out
done.
there, you got to wear your steel tip Timberlines, okay, like I had, just in case. So
Well done.
I think, won I think I tied Ron one time, but I got the edge this time. So, great cause, good fellows, like Candace said. They've helped millions of people throughout the years, and great to have a group of people like that. That's for sure. I wanted to bring up a couple things here. The first one I wanted to bring up was on Greater Mac. Okay, it's experiencing a lot of traffic, and I'm gonna bring this up because I'm concerned a little bit about the construction on Jefferson Avenue. It's starting to back up onto Greater Mac, and this is a very simple request, and I think that we should be able to pull this off either through the City of St. Clair Shores or the TIFA. But these businesses are struggling. It's a tough time of the year right now. And if we can get maybe some A-frame signs up for people that are on Greater Mac that are saying like, okay, Golden Chopsticks down this street, Waves down this street, and we can place them at the Greater Mac street entrances for them as they would go up heading east to
So you're talking like the Ridgeway and Stevens and all of those side streets?
These guys are experiencing some tough revenue losses right now. And it would be great, I think, if the city was able to step up a little bit, let them put signs out, waive their, whatever it is, the $100 or $50 fee to put those A-frame signs up on the intersections. Is that something you think we could look into?
Yes,
It seems pretty it seems like a pretty harmless request.
Yes,
So, okay, thank you. Going back to Jefferson, I know we talked a little bit. Denise Pike's not here because I think she's got the information. If she can just give us an update a little bit on the Jefferson streetscape that is being planned for the future. I'm not exactly sure if it's 2 years from now or next year or whatever the time frame happens to be.
27.
27.
2027. Okay. So that would be great because, people, especially the business community, needs to plan a little bit out ahead of that. So somebody requested that we give some more information on the library brick program, on how they do that and what the costs are for that. So if we can just sort of update that part of things, maybe at our next meeting.
I can probably do that for you.
At the next meeting,
we'll announce
get all
it.
the information
Yep,
down
yep.
and just put it out there. For Rob Spinazzola, you're still here. Good to see you. If you could look into this, it's a little bit of a project, I guess, so it's not something you need to do right now. But at St. Lucy's, there's that old baseball diamond there. I talked a little bit to Liz Codo, but there's an old baseball diamond there, and it's shot, and I don't think anybody uses it anymore. Okay, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's used. Anyways, gaining popularity is adult wiffle ball. And I was talking to Liz, and she's actually on a league in Grosse Pointe. I couldn't even believe she said that. But if that's something, maybe put some costs together and see if that's something that this city might look at, maybe next year, the year after, or down the road, because it's sort of gained a lot of popularity to make it a little wiffle ball baseball field. Okay? Just sort of see what some costs are, and maybe it is doable. The Jefferson Sewer Project still going on, obviously, for the next couple of years. When is the next meeting that they have for a timeline? I don't know, John, I know you're sort of involved with that a little bit, but I don't know if there's a meeting coming up or if we missed a meeting.
They just had one last week.
Okay.
So it's probably going to be January before, you think?
Okay.
Yeah, I
is
would have
it-
to check. Well, it's not obviously our construction project, but I can get you a date and
Okay.
information at the next meeting.
Because
or
like I
before
said,
that.
I'm going to go back to being a little bit concerned about, what's going on down there, and businesses are concerned. They might not come right out and say it, but
Yeah, Dave, you're right. It's a daily thing down there, depending on where they're dumping the dirt and where they've got machines and whether you can actually get in some of the driveways, so.
I'm just looking for a little, to alleviate a little bit of the burden down there. And it would be great for us if we could do something along that lines to help them out a little bit. Like I said, the A-frame sign thing on Greater Mac, sort of directing them to what restaurants down on Jefferson. I think that that would be a great thing for us to reach out and do. Okay, in the history walk, I know we were talking about a history walk for our 75th anniversary. Is there any updates on the history walk that would take place at the Blossom Heath? I think that was the proposed spot that we take it.
Yeah, the TIF.
I think,
Sorry.
is Denise sort of head of that too?
No, the TIFA board is working with that. I mean, it's the TIFA district. They're paying for that little kind of history walk around Wabi Park.
Is there any type of an update, or has anything been done along that line? So I sort of want to know that type of stuff.
The TIFA board just met.
Like a design, yes.
Yep, I know the TIFA board just met with some of the individuals. I'm not sure exactly where they are with design yet.
Okay, yeah, like Candace said, the design, what's going to be on it? It looks like there's some interchangeable pictures and stuff.
From my understanding at the previous TIFA board, they're trying to mirror and mimic kind of what the Ford Museum does at their area where they have some historical and plaques, and as you kind of walk and view, it makes
Okay.
something similar to what the Ford House does.
Okay, because I think at some point I had forwarded something that I saw. It was on the Ossian Sweet House that was in Detroit, sort of a historical figure and so forth, with there was a historical incident that happened, and it was beautiful for what we're trying to do. It sort of emulates the exact same thing that we were talking about. Okay. I asked Chris Reyes a little bit earlier today about, see what happens, who brought up retirement. I just retired on Friday, and yes, there's a little bit more time in the day, okay? So, got to get out of the house a little bit. The fire department, I think we've talked about this before. We've a friendly game of who finishes first. So the fire department is due to be completed, according to Chris Reyes, in mid to late January. The police department, so it looks like me and Chris, who were on the board there. So we're one up on John right now because the police department looks like they're going to finish in June. So we got a 6-month jump head start on you. So
I think the police building is a little more than a big garage, so a little more complicated.
okay. And I would like to thank, there was a fellow by the name of Wes Harris, and I don't know if anybody got this. And Wes Harris gave us a beautiful dissertation of Harper Avenue, because Harper Avenue was paved. Did you guys get this? I wasn't sure. So I think the library should have this, okay? And maybe go over it, make sure the spelling's right. But this is a beautiful piece, you know, especially with our celebration of our 75th anniversary. Harper Avenue's 100th anniversary was really 1925 it was put in. So this guy by the name of Wes Harris gave a beautiful dissertation of a historic Harper Avenue. So I would like to submit this to the library. And if you could pop up the screen. Wow. This is a guy by the name of Deon Davis. You can't really see him in the middle, but he's standing there, okay? He is the guy responsible for paving Harper Avenue, okay? Deon Davis deserves a spot in our history. And there's a picture of him. He was one of the first go-to guys that we ever had in the city of St. Clair Shores. So I want to give a special shout out, and if I could give Mr. Davis a Muskrat award, I would do it, but I'm not interested in finding him right now, okay? He passed away a little while ago.
You're looking for 2 other mini people.
Huh? Speaking of Muskrat Awards, the guy in the middle wins one. Richard, Griner? Griner from, he's all over the place, has done wonderful things in St. Clair Shores. And he was ecstatic to get a little Muskrat Award. And that's for people that have done great things. The Muskrat is somebody that is our little city mascot. And that's a little muskrat there. Cindy Ort from the Community Chorus wins one for a tremendous performance there at Lakeshore High School that you had earlier mentioned. And that little guy on the left,
he's holding the cue,
he wins one. He's the youngest guy to ever win one for his work with the Goodfellows. That was the youngest fellow to ever give anything that I ever got for the Goodfellows.
He put one in my bucket, too.
And he put some money. He was making his rounds. This is the nephew of Miss Candace Rusi here. So thank you, Logan. Sometimes I know you watch, and Richard.
He's watching.
And Cindy. Okay. Anyone interested in joining the Daughters of the American Revolution? Please contact me. I will put you in touch. That is my beautiful wife, Greta, who's a state officer here. I don't know what John's going to do with that picture, but
He did just take
Daughters of the American Revolution. These people can they can trace their bloodline all the way back to people that have fought in the American Revolution. She's got 31 patriots that did that.
Nice.
Santa Station at the Selinsky Greenhouse, put on by the Optimists. A wonderful performance by this little chorus group here. Santa Claus was there, and there they are. And he said I was on a list, but I forgot which list I was on.
The naughty list.
So we want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus for coming back for the Optimist Club of St. Clair Shores. And that was the, in fact, Candace was here, and Linda was there. This is Angie's toy chest. and they put a beautiful gala on for Toys for Tots. So it was a magnificent night. And that's what John was talking about. These guys are out there in like 10-degree weather, fixing stuff. So I would love to thank them. They saved the day, and it is cold outside, and they keep going. Just like, you can pass that one up. And I want to thank Carl here, because he's a great volunteer for the city of St. Clair Shores. Carl Schwartzwalder's in the audience. Thank you for the card. Thank you for all that you do to make this a better town. You're involved in a lot of stuff. So yourself, amongst other volunteers, we thank you for everything you do.
Amen.
Because y'all make us look better too, okay? And wonderful volunteers, and I don't think I have any more. Wait, one more. I'm not going to be here at the next meeting, so I'll get my stuff in right now. I'm very proud of my little daughter here. She graduated into nursing from Oakland University on Friday night, and that's my daughter Sasha, who I'm very proud of. So, and I think Mrs. Frederick up there, thanks for the cookies, okay? Ron and I both had sort of a rough
year with
our mothers.
For sure.
But we'll see them again someday.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Dave.
Sorry for running long, but.
City managers report.
No report, Dave took my time.
All right, audience participation, we have a 5-minute time limit. Views and opinions expressed under audience participation are those of the individual citizen only and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the mayor, city council, or administration of the city of St. Clair Shores. Would anybody like to speak? Carl.
Yeah, absolutely, Carl.
Well, you read that whole disclaimer, so
Yeah.
if nobody talks, it's going to seem silly.
And we have press row out here. Alyssa.
Press row.
Okay, first of all, I appreciate Carl Schwarzwalder, Urban Street, St. Clair Shores.
Very good.
First of all, thank you, Dave, for what you said. It means a lot to myself, but I'm sure to all the volunteers that do a lot for the city. The holidays are a time of magic, and not only just for young people, but I think you all and all of our department heads, Mr. Spinazzola behind me, our police and fire, all the people that work at City Hall, all the people that reside in the city, make a lot of magic for all of us. And I appreciate all that you all do all year long. This is a great city to live in. I was born, raised here, and I've never left. And I love it here. And I thank all of you for all you do. You keep us all safe and happy. And I've always said that if you're bored and don't have anything to do in the city, it's just because you're not looking around hard enough to find something.
There you go.
Because there's plenty to do, even in the winter. And I wish you all and everyone in the city a great holiday. Stay safe, and we'll see you next year. Thank you all.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, before I get to Mayor's comments, I just want to thank Rich Albright from Bob Erie's office, who came in, sat in to this great meeting of ours. I appreciate you being right here in case we needed you, so much appreciated. All right, so what are you doing here?
Video for the 75th, too.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. All right, so first off, let me talk just a little bit about what's happening at the library. So, and Dave, I will get you that brick program stuff for the next meeting, so we can announce it. Adults can also register for Bookmark Kids to Go starting on December 29th. Kits may be picked up via curbside at the library on from Monday, January 12th to Friday, January 16th. Each bag will contain 2 bookmark kits, one a bookmark to color and another an acrylic bookmark with custom vinyl. The library's curbside services, is very important, will be closed on December 24th and 25th for Christmas, and then again on December 31st and January 1st for the New Year's holiday. So one of the things that I think we should talk to the Goodfellows about, you guys, is a little QR code. I know they had one on the paper, but a QR code that we can wear for those people that came by and said, oh, I don't have any cash. We got to get a QR code, right?
Yeah.
Let's work on that. We'll talk to those guys. I can't remember who mentioned that to me. Maybe it was Chris. Was that you? Mentioned something about a QR code? Anyway, I think it'd be a great idea. And of course, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate during the holidays, get with your family and give them those big hugs. Now, Dave mentioned that it's our 75th anniversary here in St. Clair Shores of becoming a city. We are having a Diamond Jubilee. It's going to be a formal gala. It'll be Saturday, January 17th at Barrister Gardens. There'll be dinner and dancing and formal dress. Tickets are $100. You can get them over at Parks and Rec. And with that, I'm gonna cue the video.
Hey, St. Clair Shores. Get ready to celebrate 75 years of our amazing city at the Diamond Jubilee Anniversary Celebration. Join us on Saturday, January 17th at Barrister Gardens from 6 to 11 p.m. for an unforgettable evening filled with dinner, drinks, desserts, dancing, and live music from the Blue Water Kings Band. Tickets are $100 each and can be purchased in person at the Parks and Rec office or online at scsmi.net/Jubilee. We can't wait to celebrate this milestone with you. See you there.
This will be a great night in the neighborhood, and I can tell you that we're not here to make any money on this. I know a lot of times you hear the word gala, it's a fundraiser for somebody. This is not. Any additional funds that come in that we don't spend on the gala will actually be donated in some way to community charities. So we really appreciate that. And with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Ms. Burgess, supported by Mr. Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, guys.